We've convened here today to ask one simple question. If Darth Maul were to run a gauntlet with the Jedi High Council, exactly how far would he get? Greetings again, acolytes and lore junkies, and welcome back to the archives. Darth Maul is undoubtedly one of the most formidable Sith warriors that we can think of. He was trained personally by Darth Sidious in the ancient art of Sith combat. In the era of the Rule of Two, Maul stood as an animal purely intended to be a weapon. Even Darth Plagueis would comment on his skill. And while it's no simple feat to have slain Master Qui-Gon Jinn, a young Maul would constantly believe that he was capable of taking out the entirety of the Jedi Order. In fact, the only Jedi he deemed worthy of his skills had seats on the High Council. And so appropriately in today's holocron, we wanted to put Maul's credits where his mouth is, and take him up on that bet. Using what we know about his skill in both Legends and canon continuities, we're going to see just how many members of the Jedi High Council he can reasonably defeat on his own. We're pretty excited for this one, my friends. So if you would like to see more videos like this, let us know down below. And tell us if you want to see other characters taken through gauntlets just like this one. Now, my friends, let's begin. A comparison like this could be very complicated very quickly. First of all, the members of the High Council fluctuate regularly, and it looks very different during the Clone Wars in Episode 3 than it originally did in the Phantom Menace. Then of course, there is the argument of which version of Maul is actually his prime. Some argue that his apprentice version is the best because he had all of his power and natural potential, not being cut in half by Obi-Wan yet. Others might say that his experience led by the Clone Wars could make up for his loss of legs. But to keep everything straightforward as possible, we have chosen to use the Phantom Menace versions of both Maul and the Jedi High Council. After all, it was the arrogant apprentice Maul who first made this claim that he could kill almost everyone on the High Council. That being the case, we will not be including feats from his appearances in the Clone Wars, and also, Kit Fisto, Egan Kolar, Stas Ali, and Shak Ti will not be included on the High Council roster. For this video, we're going with the original 12 we saw when Anakin was first brought before them, but if you would like an in-depth exploration on a 1v1 between, say, an updated Maul and Kit Fisto, then be sure to drop a comment down below. So with the stage set, guys, let us begin. It's not a handicap at all for us to use the apprentice version of Darth Maul. In fact, many aren't aware of his raw power and skill at this very young age. He had been taught many Sith secrets, which made him a terrifying opponent, especially in a duel. Although he seldom used telekinetic or other alter abilities, Maul was adept at an unseen force ability. We're all aware of his expertise in Force Valor. This is a power to enhance one's body with the energies of the Force. But according to the Episode 1 journal released in 2000, Maul actually had the ability to blunt the use of the Force in his Jedi enemies. It was said that he actually did this against Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on Naboo. This made it so much more difficult for either of them to use their abilities against the fledgling Sith Lord, forcing the Jedi to fight exclusively at the blade. In Miniature's Ultimate Missions, it is stated that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan recognized Maul as the most dangerous foe that they have ever faced. Not only was he a Sith with training equal to their own, but he possessed secrets that could make him nearly invincible in battle. This is what he was born to do. Maul's main form of study was the erratic Form 7 Juyo. Maul's internalized aggression further served to augment his use of the 7th form. The prophets of the dark side once commented that Maul was an engine of pure hatred. And since Form 7 draws upon aggressive emotions and the thrill of a duel, Maul would create a rapidly increasing feedback loop that would generate more power in his blade work. To put it simply, if Mace Windu's Vapad drew upon the opponent's darkness to generate their power, Maul's Juyo automatically generated power from hatred that already existed latent within him. Not only this, but Obi-Wan later commented that Maul had actually drawn upon the anger that the young Padawan was feeling over the death of Qui-Gon to fuel him. Maul drew from Obi-Wan's feelings to off-balance him and to gain the upper hand. We can actually see this happen right after Kenobi severs Maul's saber staff. Immediately after this, it's almost as if Maul becomes supercharged, and his blade work is even faster than before. It was at this moment that Maul began to feed on Kenobi's wrath. Maul augmented the deadly nature of the Sith style with the acrobatics and aggressive maneuvers from Form 4 Ataru, and the dual blade style of Jar Kai. His Jar Kai technique was so adept that even Darth Plagueis complimented him on it. Along with all of that though, Maul was trained in unarmed fighting styles as well, specifically Teräs Käsi, making him a lethal weapon even without his lightsaber. His body became his weapon at that point. Although Palpatine never intended for Maul to be a true successor, he didn't hold back in any of his training. While he never groomed Maul in the ways of being a Dark Lord, he did share many dark side secrets, and refined him into a warrior. That is what he was meant to be. On one occasion, Sidious decided to actually duel Maul in a serious way in order to test him. He later informed his own master Plagueis of this incident, and Sidious reported that after stranding Maul on Hypori for a month, depriving him of food, he challenged him to a real duel. In Sidious's own words, Maul fought well, all things considered, and fought well he did. Despite being starved and injured from an assassin droid, Maul managed to bite Sidious on the hand and to actually draw blood. Sidious was so sure of his victory on Naboo that he was genuinely surprised to hear of Maul's death, and the fact that 2 simple Jedi had taken out his powerful apprentice. From that point and beyond that day, he was crowned Emperor, but he would forever consider Maul to have been a significant loss to his plan, and a true Sith juggernaut. In fact, Sidious would even call the loss of Maul a greater loss than that of Dooku. But that's not even close to the end of Maul's battle feats. But all is to say is that he is well equipped to handle the challenges ahead of him, even in his Phantom Menace version. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into the first matchups of the Jedi High Council. As an aside, Maul is a shadow assassin who usually only engages enemies once he learns as much as he can about them. So we're giving the benefit of the doubt and saying that he would have done research on each member of the High Council before fighting them. This is how Sidious would have wanted him to do it, and it's how Maul would have gone about it after all. Our aim is not to make a narrative or a what-if scenario here, but for the sake of argument, we are assuming that Maul is the one getting the drop on the Masters, as he's methodically picking them off one by one in isolated duels. Adi Gallia is first, and we're going to already say that she does not make the cut. Her most significant role on the Jedi High Council is her excellent starfighter piloting skills and covert intelligence network. She was skilled in Form 5 Xian, despite being of slighter frame. She also employed acrobatics to build momentum for physically demanding form, and she balanced her blade work between the offense and defensive capabilities of its style. But Adi Gallia has very few battlefield feats to her name, and she loses both of the only duels that we ever see her in. She very briefly duels General Grievous, but the General is only using 2 lightsabers at the time, and the Jedi was not winning. While we don't see the outcome of this duel, the last we see of it is her getting kicked by the General into a wall, and although she manages to survive, she did not score any victories. And the last duel she's in results directly in her death by Savage Opress, after being dominated during the entire fight. Apprentice Maul is undoubtedly more elegant and refined than Savage was, so any duel between himself and Adi Gallia would be essentially trivial. Next is the Kermian master Yarael Poof. He's not quite as useless as he looks. Despite an ungainly appearance, Poof was a master of Force illusion. He used this to augment his stealth, fooling his enemies into believing that he was nothing more than a passing shadow or a puff of wind. He was even able to reach into the minds of certain enemies and pull out their worst nightmares, making them see beasts and horrors which scared them out of combat. This is almost like a less intense version of the dark side spell used by the Sith sorcerer Darth Zana. But when he does find himself in lightsaber combat, Master Poof is also known to be a master of Force speed. He was able to cross several meters and disarm blaster-wielding enemies between the time it took for them to aim their weapons and to pull the triggers. Despite this though, he had allowed himself to get distracted, which caused him to get stabbed in the gut by a non-Force sensitive. Maul is easily known for his speed as well. He took out 7 of the galaxy's most dangerous men before one of them finished a sentence. Maul also trained against droidekas, which were droids that regularly murdered Jedi. Poof's speed is not an issue for Maul at all, and neither are his illusions. As we stated earlier, Maul can blunt Jedi's uses of the Force, cornering them into facing him at the blade. If Maul were to ever engage Yarael Poof, this would be his first technique. And after that, we don't see the Jedi Master lasting much longer. Master Evan Piell is next, and unlike the very few masters before him, he is much more adept at lightsaber combat. It was said that Master Evan practiced all 7 forms of lightsaber combat without having a preference of any of them. He was regarded as being highly proficient in the art of combat, and was well respected for it. Hearing this, we at first wanted to equate him to someone like Sindralig, but it seems that this is too much of a logic leap. Despite having knowledge of all 7 forms, it does not appear that he had mastered them. His greatest feats mostly involve an expertise in blaster deflection and victories over melee-wielding non-Force sensitive beings, none of which is impressive enough to say that he could hold a candle to Darth Maul. What's more is that he was taken prisoner by droids aboard his starship, which is a massive negative considering Maul's previously established dominance over droids of all kinds. Evan would not be able to hold out against Maul for much longer than Gallia or Poof would. Maul is a juggernaut. So now it's time to turn up the heat. These low-effort fights will not last long, especially once Maul steps up to the Itachi Jedi Master Saesee Tiin. Saesee is a powerful telepath, and is most notable for his skills in piloting. His natural foresight and telepathy is so adept that he can instinctively navigate hyperlanes without needing any sort of computer help. In the realm of lightsaber combat though, he is touted as one of the Order's finest warriors, and he was among those specially chosen by Mace Windu to arrest Palpatine. He was a practitioner of Form 5 Gem So, the dueling variant, the form preferred by Anakin Skywalker. It is known that the Jedi had considerable physical strength, displaying the ability to crush the head of a battle droid with his elbow and hurl them great distances in the Force. This fight is difficult because Saesee is stated to be one of the Order's strongest warriors, but lip service alone is one thing, real feats is another. And in the feats department, the Jedi Master is sorely lacking. Being called one of the greatest warriors in the Jedi Order only goes so far against Darth Maul. The Sith assassin already has Qui-Gon's kill under his belt, but he has also killed Master Bundara, another Jedi who is said to be one of the greatest Jedi swordsmen of the era. Bundara had trained not only in lightsaber combat, but in the unarmed style of Teräs Käsi. But after only just the first couple of blows, both Maul and Bundara realized that the Sith was the superior of the two. Without feats to set himself apart as a warrior of special distinction, Master Tiin will fall to the saberstaff. Let's turn up the heat again. Maul's Iridonian cousin and fellow Zabrak Eeth Koth is next. This will be the first duel on the list where Maul will likely find an opponent that he will respect. Master Koth is an extremely proficient duelist, and although we aren't sure of his specific style, he appears to favor Form 4 Ataru. He has two big duels under his belt in both Legends and canon, the first and the most notable being when he defended himself against General Grievous, and although he had previously been shot in the arm, he managed to hold his own against the cyborg general one-handed. He even blasted Grievous back with a well-placed force push. He only lost when he was surrounded by the Magna Guards and forced to submit. But his feat has been accomplished due to his mastery of a rare force technique, Crucitorn, the Jedi ability to ignore pain and hindrances of injuries for an extended period of time. In canon, he puts up an admirable fight against Darth Vader, but didn't last longer than a minute or so, and in that time, he was beaten rather badly by the Dark Lord's saber and force attacks, before finally being stabbed once he was distracted. Maul likely finds himself in his first extended duel here. We wouldn't call this a close fight, but he doesn't win with the immediate act that he would against others. It would take him a few passes with the lightsaber. Wounding Koth would do little to slow him down, so Maul would have to go for a precise, measured kill, which of course will take some time. Nevertheless, he still wins in our book, and as good as Koth may be, we believe Qui-Gon was better. A better challenge for him would ironically be Master Depa Billaba. Depa was in actuality a Jedi Counselor, one who specialized on Force empathy, healing, stealth, and telepathy. But despite more focus on the spiritual state of the Force, she was a formidable duelist. In canon, she was pretty unremarkable and a practitioner of Form 3, but in Legends, she really shines. She was one of Mace Windu's only Padawans, and the only other person besides himself and Sora Bulk to have studied Vaapad. Towards the end of the Clone Wars, Depa would go missing on Windu's homeworld of Haran Kal, having been driven mad by the war and the darkness of the planet's jungle. By the time Windu found her, she had been fully consumed by the dark side, and she managed to surprise attack Windu and critically injure him before engaging in a duel. Mace still managed to triumph over her, though the battle was extremely close. He would later on claim that Depa's blade work had surpassed his own, from the novel Shatterpoint. But we have to be fair when we analyze Billaba here. In this instance, not only was Windu suffering from a stab wound, but Depa was both drawing upon the dark side and feeding off of the life energies of the nearby beings under her will. So in essence, she was supercharged when she fought Windu on Haran Kal. These factors would not be present if she were to engage Darth Maul around the time of the Phantom Menace. Her use of Vaapad is something to be acknowledged though. Of course, a Phantom Menace Depa wouldn't be as adept as the Clone Wars Depa, so we highly doubt she had mastered it beyond Mace Windu at this point. Having said that, Maul wouldn't have any prior experience dealing with Form 5 or its variants, especially with its tricky feature of reflecting an opponent's darkness back onto them. Even though it would not be as perfect against Windu, Maul was described as an engine of pure hate, so he would be bulwarked here by Depa. What many do not realize though, is that Vaapad may be strong, but it's far from perfect. Dooku once criticized the wild form for being sloppy and leaving too many gaps. Maul's blade work was praised by Sidious for being elegant and precise despite his aggression. Form 7, both Vaapad and Juyo often have the pitfall of leaving the users open, especially when they overcommit to an attack. Maul compensated for this by ensuring his blade work remained tight and sharp. He also employed Ataru acrobatics to keep his enemies from fully pinning him down. Depa may have a very unique form on her side, but since she primarily focuses on being a consular, we doubt that her lightsaber training would be on par with a Sith assassin. Her Vaapad form may allow her to go much further than others, but eventually she would fail to keep pace with the energetic movements of a Sith assassin, and fall to his deadly precision. Maul's sting of easy victories, though, will end here, as the difficulty takes a sharp upturn when we reach masters such as Yaddle. While not typically associated with being a fighter, Yaddle roots herself as a tough enemy because of her sheer presence in the light. Her stand against darkness and her uncompromisingly compassionate heart awarded her with many powerful abilities, especially in the light. This includes, but is not limited to, an ability known as Morchiro and Force Light. Morichiro is the ability to slow down an opponent's vitals with the Force, to the point of even making their heart stop. Force Light is a way of generating a wall of pure light that scatters the influence of the dark side completely. It has the ability to weaken or even outright sever Darksiders from touching the Force at all. And when it comes to the lightsaber, Yaddle is not totally helpless either. Using her feats from canon, she displays mastery in Ataru and Surisu. She held out against a Jedi Dooku for a reasonable amount of time, but of course, that duel was very hard to quantify. A, because Dooku was conflicted during the duel, and B, Yaddle was not trying to hurt him. Instead, she was attempting to appeal to his inner self. Nevertheless, we got to see her display a respectable degree of proficiency in defensive combat against Dooku. We can definitely see an outcome here where Maul's arrogance gets the better of him, causing him to underestimate Master Yaddle. This mistake would be a costly one, as she could blind him to his own power and win without any fight taking place. But it should also be known that Force Light may be the strongest power in the light side's arsenal. The stronger the move, the stronger one's concentration and potency it's going to require. If Yaddle begins to draw that technique out, Maul's keen senses would alert him to the danger. This could nullify the technique. Another strategy Yaddle might try is to draw the fight out and to keep Maul occupied at the lightsaber. While they duel, she would reach into him with the Morchiro technique and begin to slow his vitals. This could work for a few minutes, but once Maul finds it hard to breathe and to move, he will discover her ruse. Assuming it isn't too late, he would then more than likely dull her force abilities and completely stop the process. Although Maul is prideful, Maul is no fool, and unlike Obi-Wan on Naboo, Yaddle does not really have anything in her arsenal that could surprise Maul enough to create an opening. Yaddle would fight hard. Maul might find himself in a pinch once or twice, but we don't see Yaddle winning. Maul's rampage against the Council continues. Oppo Rancisis is our next challenger, and if there were ever to be an intense duel, it would be this one. Master Rancisis is not typically seen fighting with the lightsaber, largely because he is a military mastermind. He prefers organizing from behind the scenes. This was due to his proficiency with the legendary art of battle meditation, but unfortunately this is not a skill that he would be employing in a 1v1 duel. Being a Thespiaspian, Rancisis possesses 4 arms and a long serpentine lower body. Despite having multiple limbs, Oppo only uses a single-bladed green lightsaber. This was to leave his other arms free to utilize his catalog of extremely rare force techniques. The one thing this master was known for was practicing the power that most Jedi ignored. He was privy with the ability of Electric Judgment, the Jedi variant of Force Lightning, and Oppo once used it to electrocute an opponent without even looking at them. He was also known for practicing Malacia, an ability which turned a victim's equilibrium completely against themselves, inducing incapacitating nausea and dizziness for several minutes. It was primarily a defense mechanism, something Rancisis used to remind attackers that they were not invincible, and that he possessed techniques beyond them. Oppo's most notable duel was against a team of Anzadi assassins, which are deadly vampire-like beings. In the duel, Rancisis used his lightsaber and force techniques in tandem with his tail in order to defeat all of them. His serpentine lower body was useful for whipping and grappling enemies from a distance while enabling the Jedi himself to be incredibly agile. From what we can observe, he was a practitioner of Form 6 Nyman. Our assumption is based on how often he weaves force attacks into his blade work, a staple of Form 6. Oppo Rancisis was such a dangerous enemy that Sora Bulk, who had once helped Mace Windu develop Vapad, opted not to engage the Jedi Master directly in combat. Rather, Sora killed him through subterfuge. While the assassins distracted him, Bulk snuck up behind him like a coward and stabbed him in the back. In canon, Rancisis is counted among Order 66 survivors that are still at large and is actually yet to be found, adding more credibility to his legend. If Maul is going to duel Jedi Master Oppo Rancisis, he cannot go in blindly. He must have a strategy prepared in advance. Once again, Maul's ability to blunt Jedi's use of the Force would not only be useful in this situation, but it may just save him. But again, he's meeting an enemy that can now actually match him physically somewhat. Unfortunately though, Rancisis suffers the same problem that Saesee Tiin does, which is that he lacks sufficient feats to make this battle clear. But what is apparent is that Maul will be having an incredibly difficult time if he attempts to challenge the Jedi head on. Rancisis can use his tail to control Maul's acrobatic movements, limit his space. Maul can keep Oppo from using his more problematic abilities, but getting close enough to land the definitive strike will prove to be the biggest trial. This is the first case on our list where the battlefield will play a major factor on the victor. Maul would need to engage Rancisis somewhere dark, with plenty of elevation and high ground. Utilizing stealth is Maul's best chance here. Oppo's keen senses will likely prevent Maul from getting a one-shot assassination, but if Maul is able to engage him briefly and then slink back into the shadows, he could then employ ambush tactics to off-balance the Jedi. According to the feats that we have in Maul in his apprentice days, it's possible that his sheer speed, his kinetic power, could be the deciding factor should he opt for an ambush tactic. Let's not forget it was Darth Plagueis who said that Maul's speed was astounding, so much that the holo recordings failed to pick him up, and a droid's photoreceptors were unable to follow the assassin. When facing one of Dooku's former Padawans, the Dark Jedi Komori Vosa, she sees multiple blades moving almost too fast to see. Despite Maul having an injured arm at this time, he was overwhelming her with the sheer speed and ferocity of his saber staff. When it comes to the Sith Lord's raw power, he was able to shatter the magic-enhanced blade of a Night Sister. Oppo just isn't shown to have that kind of speed and power, even if he does have finesse. Even if Master Rancisis is able to push through Maul's dueling ability and employ his strange uses of the Force, it's difficult to see it availing him for very long. The fight is a very close one, but Maul proceeds to the next challenge as victor. If the Sith assassin believed he was in a position to take on the High Council, then the definitive test of his skill would be against the Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi. Here, the kid gloves are completely removed, and Maul would find himself in a duel for his life similar to the one that he faced on Naboo. Many do not like this particular Jedi Master, but there is no denying his insane skill in combat. In his youth, Ki-Adi-Mundi's aggression and anger was tempered by his training with the Dark Woman, a Jedi with a notorious reputation for pushing her Padawans to their very limit, sometimes not for the better. Mundi also trained under Master Yoda and gained a mastery of Ataru. In fact, his proficiency with the Form and Form 4 was said to be second only to the Grand Master himself, placing him among the top duelists of the entire Order and the era. He would also study a measure of Form 2 Makashi, hoping to temper his aggression with a more refined form. At one point prior to the events of the Phantom Menace, Yoda had tasked Mundi with tracking down the legendary Jedi Sharad Het, who had gone rogue. The Grand Master said that of all living Jedi, only Ki-Adi had the skills to defeat Sharad at the time. Mundi, though, brushed this off as flattery, but Yoda insisted that he spoke the truth. While we don't have a lot of duels to pull from that give Mundi a victory, we do know that he forced Asajj Ventress to flee during the Battle of Coruscant. And when Legends General Grievous made his terrifying appearance on Hypori, Mundi was the one who lasted the longest of the group of Jedi. Despite sustaining injuries, he was the last one standing against the terrifying cyborg threat after holding him off for an extended 1v1 engagement. Given the insane power attributed to the Legends version of Grievous, this is a significant feat for Master Ki-Adi-Mundi. A fair fight between Maul and Mundi would last a very long time by our assumption. Both duelists would undoubtedly surprise one another with their aggression, and it would likely devolve into a war of attrition. Mundi is strong and willful. He would not give ground easily, and would regularly attempt to force Maul into a retreat. Mundi could also keep pace with Maul's agility, deflecting his precise strikes due to his control of Form 2. We would be tempted to say that Maul stops here, and is stalemated by Mundi, but the deciding factor comes with the fact that Darth Maul beat Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon, who could be equated with Mundi on a skill basis. If there were any external factors that invalidated Maul's victory of Qui-Gon, we could not use it. But because the assassin killed the Jedi Master in a fair one-on-one duel, there's nothing to say that he could not pull another dirty trick to undermine Ki-Adi-Mundi the same way he did Qui-Gon. We don't think it's controversial at all to say that Maul would clutch a win against Mundi, but he doesn't leave the battle unscathed at all. It's even possible that he'll require some cybernetics after. So far we've been able to reason that an apprentice Maul would clear about 80% of the Jedi High Council. But with this next matchup, his trail of glory may just come to an end, because now Maul is going to face someone that he actually complimented once. In Maul's own opinion, this Jedi Master was the only one who could be a true test of the skill of a warrior of his caliber. The next challenger is Plo Koon. Our Zabrak warrior has had some easy victories, some difficult victories, and some close calls. But what happens when he actually steps up to the master that he wanted to duel all along? Plo Koon demonstrated a mastery of combat both in terms of the lightsaber and especially when unarmed. He was considered one of the Order's best combatants, measuring up with the likes of Mace Windu. In the lore, Qui-Gon would even comment that he was an excellent swordsman, referring to him as a taskmaster. Despite being one of the most compassionate Jedi in the Order, Plo Koon was a master of the Form 5 variant Gemso, one specifically designed for dueling using one's raw strength. This actually suited him quite well, as he was very physically powerful. Plo Koon's strength and endurance were absolutely off the charts. His strength and endurance were absolutely off the charts. He was capable of picking up and hurling fully grown beings, and he once fought off an entire group of armed thugs with his bare hands, knocking them out with a straight headbutt to the teeth. By utilizing his strength and Gemso, he gained a reputation in the Council as being a challenge for any Jedi. Now we want to address something that is often thrown around about Plo Koon. There is a story that claims that he is the only member of the Jedi Council to have defeated Yoda in lightsaber combat. After doing thorough research, we have not been able to fully verify the legitimacy of this claim though. This comes from a game called Star Wars: The Clone Wars Lightsaber Duels from Nintendo Wii. In a sparring match between Anakin and Plo Koon, Anakin comments that he once heard that Plo is the only Jedi to have defeated Yoda in a duel. But Plo neither confirms nor denies this statement. But this claim is way too shaky to be taken at face value. First of all, it's idle game chatter between two characters. Second, the way Anakin says it implies that it's a rumor. Third, in the novel Darth Maul Shadowhunter, Yoda has a training demonstration where he invites Plo Koon, Saesee, Tiin, and Depa Billaba to attack him all at once. Yoda was not armed, and when he attacked, he didn't move a single meter from where he was standing. Yet, not a single one of the 3 Jedi Masters so much as touched him before he hurled them all back with telekinesis. It is not likely to us that this rumor holds water, so it will not be counted as a feat of Plo Koon for this video. But luckily for us, this does not diminish Koon's aptitude for combat. In terms of defense, his body was incredibly dense, allowing him to take a significant amount of punishments in his fights. We don't know if he uses Crucitorn like Eeth Koth, but it is implied that he's just built different. It's been shown that Plo Koon can survive in the vacuum of space for an extended period of time without the use of a pressurized envirosuit. This was helped of course by his breathing mask, which he wears at all times. His durability extends to having an extraordinary pain tolerance as well. On one mission, Plo Koon had a broken arm and would be forced into a duel with none other than Ventress. He fought her one-handed, and when she kicked him right in his arm, he shrugged it off and released a force push that sent her flying. Despite having to fight against both her sabers without the use of his left arm, Koon managed to disarm her of one of her weapons. He then also made her fail her mission by using the force to take a remote detonator off of her belt. Along with Gemso, Plo is also familiar with Form 4 Ataru, which gives him much better mobility than most Form 5 wielders, which is extremely important. It makes him a lot more deadly. The combination of the 4th and the 5th lightsaber styles is an extremely deadly one. Anakin Skywalker also used this combo for his personal form. As supplementing by Gemso's lack of mobility with Ataru's footwork, this enabled him to not only bound across the battlefield with ease, but also continue generating new power. Plo employs this by enhancing himself with force speed. During the Clone Wars, he managed to slice through Aurra Sing's blasters right before she could fire them. This is significant because Aurra Sing is force sensitive, a known Jedi killer with blasters. And yet Plo crossed the room and disarmed her before she could open fire. On another occasion, a clone trooper watched a flurry of blue light suddenly descend upon a droid platoon, and in the time it took for him to say, "What is that?" 3 words, Plo Koon had already sliced through dozens of battle droids. In terms of force abilities, Master Koon is most famous for his polarizing ability of Electric Judgment. He also was an expert in the Alter Environment power, which gave him control over his surroundings, such as when he summoned a large fog to cover the escape for himself and his fellow Jedi. His force pushes were devastating when released at full power, and of course, he had a familiarity with Malacia just like Oppo Rancisis did. For this battle, once again, Plo will not be able to rely on his force abilities alone. In our opinion, if Maul was able to blunt the use of Qui-Gon's powers, then he can do something similar with Plo for a little while. But that matters little. Even if Plo could use Electric Judgment, Maul has proven to have a resistance to Force Lightning. In the Darth Maul comics from 2000, a Night Sister's magic lightning proved to be completely ineffective against the Sith assassin. Maul has apparently been electrocuted so many times by Sidious that he gained a certain resistance to it. Only Sidious's lightning is potent enough to actually harm him anymore, and everyone else's feels weak. But at the lightsaber, if there was ever a Jedi to match Maul beat for beat, it would be Plo Koon. The sheer speed and ferocity of the way that he fights would be a spectacle to behold. Much like Mundi, Plo will have no problems keeping up with Maul's speed and his power. However, we cannot say that he would exceed it. As physically adept as the Keldor Master is, Maul can inflict a devastating amount of strength with his blows. In Maul Lockdown, he punched a Wampa so hard that his hands went through its torso until he grabbed its heart. He's killed large creatures like the Vatrikils and giant spiders with his bare hands, and as dense as Plo Koon is, he would find his natural defenses put to the absolute test against Maul. In almost every way, the two would find themselves at a stalemate. In a previous video, we did a full in-depth analysis of Plo Koon versus General Grievous. In that video, we determined that Plo would clutch a victory. But of course, Star Wars power scaling doesn't follow rock, paper, scissors logic. We determined that Grievous's arrogance and Koon's resistance to emotional manipulation, along with his abilities in the Force, would be the deciding factor in that duel. Here though, we will not have to worry about Maul's arrogance, which is rare. Maul knows the power of Plo, and would therefore be taking this fight to the utmost of seriousness. Maul will not be using anything but his absolute best for this duel. His pride as a warrior would demand nothing less. But Plo Koon doesn't fall for the trappings that most of the other Jedi on this list will. He's cunning, exceptionally talented in combat. Many could compare him with Mundi, and while they may be similar in skill level, Plo Koon just has a much better intuition, which would keep him aware of Maul's tricks and dirty tactics. For this fight, an impasse is almost inevitable. The only thing that could mess this up for the Keldor Jedi is his species. Unfortunately, Plo Koon has a glaring weak spot located right on his face. His breathing mask. Because normal atmospheres are toxic to the Keldor species, they have to wear a breathing mask and goggles. It is shown that when Koon fought Savage Opress, that Savage was able to snatch his mask right off of his face, ending the duel immediately, and this almost cost Plo his life. If Savage was quick enough to do this, then Maul certainly can as well. But despite this, we don't truly believe this to be an end-all factor in the duel. As underhanded as Maul can be, he actually loathes using dirty tricks, and always regretted the way that he killed Qui-Gon Jinn, believing that he could have done it more cleanly, saying that the Jedi Master deserved a better death. And although we think he could have used a trick like that to defeat Mundi, there is a possibility that Maul would find every avenue possible to avoid taking Plo Koon's breathing mask away, as he would want to best him blade to blade. But at the end of the day, Maul is a Sith Lord, and will do anything he needs to win, even if he's not satisfied with the outcome. For this one, my friends, we'll have to be frank. If Maul is to fight and defeat Plo Koon in an official Star Wars project, it would only be because the writers wanted him to. By every facet and feat that we can consider, the two stalemate one another, or Plo would be able to force Maul into a retreat. They are about as close as you can get. Assuming Maul does not target his mask directly, it would entirely depend on actual plot reasons. We know that this may be an unsatisfying answer, but even if Maul isn't stopped by Plo, he would undoubtedly meet the end of the gauntlet at the hands of Windu. Master Windu is in a league all of his own. The debate with him is not if he could beat an apprentice Maul, but whether or not he could beat Dooku. There just isn't a way that the Phantom Menace Maul stands a chance against someone like Mace Windu. As for Yoda, there also isn't even a question. But let it not be said that Maul couldn't make an absolutely huge breach into the ranks of the High Council. Although some of our fights were situationally dependent, in most cases we believed that Maul would be able to capably carve his way through 9 out of the 12 Phantom Menace Council members. It's highly debatable if he can win against Plo, but in our opinion, Plo is where he stops. And if he does win, it's by the skin of his teeth, Windu waiting in the wings to finish the job. But this is of course where we turn it over to you. We recognize that there are many variables to consider with each and every matchup, so we would love to hear what you think of our analysis. Are we wrong? Does Maul meet his match much earlier in the list? Or do you think that he could give Windu a real problem? And if you were to include Shaak Ti and Kit Fisto, how do you think those duels would go as well? Would you like to see us explore videos about Maul facing these combatants? And if you would like to see more videos just like this one, reach out with the Force and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, my friends and fellow lore junkies, thanks so much for coming along with us in this gauntlet today, and as always, may the Force be with you.